Hi guys, it's Natasha. I don't know why I did that. But today's self-love video was actually inspired by a comment that one of my subscribers left in one of my older videos, which was from Belle Fairy Dust. And they asked, how did you find being in relationships with low self-esteem? I've struggled to get into relationships because of low self-esteem. And I'm like, ooh, do you want the short version or the long version? Because the long version can take hours. But I'll try to keep this short and not go off on too many tangents. So I'm going to describe my own thoughts and experiences on dating when you're still working on loving yourself. So just to give some context on my personal experience with dating, um, I pretty much pushed people away and I would just run away from relationships like ASAP as soon as things started making me feel uncomfortable. And I mean uncomfortable as in like I started feeling like I was starting to really like the person. So I would just,
run away from everything.
So, keeping that in mind, something that I've noticed in my relationships and in friends' relationships is that I feel like there are two very different ways that people who may feel insecure can approach a relationship. And one way is self sabotaging by pushing people away.
Hi, that was me.
So, and by pushing people away, I mean putting up walls. You don't really let anybody in. You have this fear of being hurt or maybe even being abandoned. I know I was scared of that as well. It was easier for me to be alone and not get hurt than to be with somebody and then potentially get hurt. And then the other one is being very clingy and jumping from relationship to relationship. When we jump from relationship to relationship, sometimes it's because we're so scared of being alone because we use that relationship as a band-aid. And we think that if we are with another person, if somebody else can love me and show that I can be loved, then maybe that'll make me feel happy. Maybe that'll make me love myself. But the problem with putting your self-worth and your value on whether somebody loves you or not is a slippery slope, because once that's taken away, then what do you have? You're back at square one, right? The band-aid's ripped off, and then all of those insecurities can come flooding back. We hope that if somebody loves us, then that means that we are now loved and we matter, because internally we don't love ourselves. And so that's something that I want to caution if you are still dealing with insecurity and you are still working on loving yourself. When we are insecure and we don't love ourselves, sometimes we may stick in a relationship longer than necessary. And what I mean by that is we may end up staying in a relationship that's toxic, where somebody does not appreciate us or respect us or is constantly trampling on our boundaries. And we may end up staying in those longer because of that fear of being alone, of feeling lonely, of being abandoned, and that abandonment feeding into that insecurity that we may have that we're not lovable. But that's something just to keep in mind. This phrase has been told to me before, and I've shared this with people that I care about as well, so I want to share it with you. And maybe some of you may not agree with this, but I personally believe it's true, is we attract the love that we think that we deserve. So when you don't love yourself and when you're insecure, you may have a tendency to end up in relationships where somebody may not end up valuing you, because toxic and manipulative people may purposely seek out somebody who they see as being insecure because they're easier to control or hold power over. So I want to caution that when you are insecure, just be mindful of that, is getting into these relationships that may not serve you, and then fearing being alone and sticking in them longer than necessary because of that fear. But something that really helped me, at least when I was dating and putting myself out there, is reminding myself, and I kind of spoke about this earlier, that my value is not dependent on whether somebody finds me attractive or not, or whether they want to date me or not. Because it isn't. Again, putting your self-worth in somebody else's hands is only going to lead to tragedy, because if that person ends up leaving you at some point, you're back to square one. So I would always remind myself of that whenever a date didn't go well or I got ghosted. I'm sure you guys have been there before, where, you know, maybe you were dating somebody and you went on a couple of dates, or maybe even dated somebody for a few months.
I've been there too.
And they just ghost you out of nowhere. And it's so easy to fall into that trap where those negative thoughts come in and you're like,
oh, is it because I did this? Is it because I'm not pretty enough or handsome enough or attractive enough? Is it because I'm boring? Like, what is wrong with me?
we always try to put the blame on ourselves, right? Oh, it must be something with me. And instead you don't think like, well, maybe it's them. Maybe we're just not a good match, and maybe they're doing me a favor by ghosting me because clearly this isn't going to work. And so I tried to apply that whenever I felt upset with a relationship not working out, is reminding myself, just because this person isn't compatible with me doesn't lower my self-worth. So, and this is why, and we've talked about this on my podcast with my best friend Nina, Be You Not Them, I hate the phrase, you complete me. You see it in movies and books, like in those romance movies, and it never sat right with me, because we're all complete. We are all complete people. It doesn't matter what trauma you've been through, if you deal with anxiety, if you deal with depression, if somebody's hurt you in the past. Regardless of what happened, you are still a complete person. You're not incomplete. There is no such thing as an incomplete person. There's just a person who feels like they're not complete. And we feel that way when we don't truly appreciate ourselves and truly love ourselves for who we are. And that's why we seek out relationships, for a way to validate that love. So I feel like I've said this in my other self-love videos, but I will say it again. Would you talk to your friend that way? Would you? If a friend of yours was going through relationship troubles, well, you know, maybe they're dating somebody and they come to you and they go, hey, I went on 2 dates with this guy. I really like him. He's so attractive and he's so sweet, but he hasn't texted me in the last 2 days. And I think maybe he's seeing somebody else as well. Maybe I'm not attractive enough for him. Maybe it's because I'm ugly. What are you going to tell them? Are you going to say, yeah, you know, maybe he hasn't texted you yet because he thinks you're ugly? No, you're going to ground them. You're going to tell them to step back and be like, that's not it. Like, you are building this story around this that probably doesn't even exist. So why don't you apply that same logic to yourself? Sometimes we are so kind and caring to others, but we don't give ourselves that same kindness. We go and we start going down that rabbit hole of, oh, well, maybe it's because I'm not smart enough, or maybe that person thinks that I'm annoying, or I'm just unlovable. Nobody will ever want to date me. When we would never say that to somebody that we love, like a friend or somebody from our family. So apply that same logic to yourself. I think what's also important is even when you are dating and in a relationship, is to continue working on yourself, whether that's seeing a therapist, reading books, and also keeping time for yourself and doing things that you love. That really helps boost your confidence and boost your morale, because I think it's very important to still have your own thing when you're in a relationship and not always do everything together. And whether it's doing a sport or a hobby that gives you confidence or makes you happy, or continuously listening to like self-love or self-development psychology books that can help you learn how to cope with maybe some negative thoughts or insecurities you have. Or something I always recommend is getting a therapist that can also help you break through some of these patterns in insecurities or anxieties that you may have in regards to relationships. Boundaries are also very important. Be okay with putting your foot down and being like, I didn't like it when you did this because it made me feel like this. And if they disregard that, then again, that's a sign that this person isn't for you and it's time to pivot. And it's okay to put those boundaries when you feel like you've been disrespected. And it can be especially hard if you're dealing with feelings of insecurity, but it's a great way to kind of like step into your power. And I mean step into your power as in showing love to yourself and proving to yourself that you are worthy of respect in a relationship. If somebody's ignoring you or only calling you or texting you when they want to see you and are otherwise non-existent when you're not there, putting down those boundaries can be an amazing boost of confidence, because it's almost like once you do that, once you send that text or give them that call, it's like, good on me. I stood up for myself. And it's always scary at first. I think the first time I put up boundaries when I felt like I was being disrespected, I was like, ooh, I was so nervous. But afterwards, I felt so freaking powerful. I was like, yeah, look at you putting your foot down and saying no. But in the end, and I hope this video is helpful for you guys, I feel like it all starts and ends with self-love. That's why it's so important, like I said, to just keep continuously working on yourself, even if you're dating somebody or in a relationship, because if you don't love yourself, that's where a lot of insecurities are going to stem from. Because if you have self-limiting beliefs like, I'm unlovable, I don't deserve love, how are you going to trust someone? How are you going to have faith in someone else? A healthy relationship is built on a foundation of trust. And if one or both parties don't trust one another, then it's not going to be a healthy relationship. I know that's something that I struggled with, and that's why I ran away from relationships, is because I didn't have faith in myself, because I was scared of my own emotions, of being hurt. That fear of, I was depressed before. What if I feel something so intensely, like getting my heart broken, and I spiral again? I don't want that to happen to me. So I'm just going to run away from love. I'm going to run away from relationships when I start getting uncomfortable, because I feel like I'm starting to catch feelings, because being alone was safer for me because it meant that I wouldn't be hurt by somebody else. And that's not a good way of living. I know, because I was there for several years and I put on this facade like I was the tough girl who, you know, a relationship wouldn't work out and I just brush it off. But internally, because I was avoidant in relationships, it was because internally I was scared, because I couldn't trust myself. And because I couldn't trust myself, I couldn't trust others. And something beautiful that Ben, my boyfriend, told me when I had a nervous breakdown because I was really starting to fall in love with him. And I told him how scared I was. And I told him, like, what if you break my heart? What if you hurt me? It was all about me. It was all about my emotions and my fears. And he's like, you just have to have faith. I haven't done anything that has shown that you can't trust me, right? And I was like, no, you haven't done anything to make me question your honesty or to question my trust in you. And he's like, so you just have to have faith and trust that things will work out. And that can be so hard when you don't love yourself. But luckily for me, I was already on my journey of self-love. And so that was a very big aha moment to me, because I was like, I have to trust. I have to break down the walls, because if I don't break down the walls, how can I ever connect with anybody in any type of relationship if I'm constantly on guard? You just have to trust that that person isn't going to hurt you. And then if they show signs of being unfaithful, of being mean, of trampling on your boundaries, then you can revoke that trust. But we just have to start with faith and trust in ourselves and in others. So I feel like this video went on a little longer than I initially expected. But I hope my experiences and my thoughts on dating when you're working on loving yourself has helped even a little bit, and hopefully a piece of my story resonated with you. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I love your feedback. I love hearing your thoughts too, guys. Truly, it makes my day. I'm not joking. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. I put out self-love videos every other week, and when I'm not posting about self-love, I'm posting about fashion. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. Love you.